The great hall of the Galactic Union Station was filled with light and music. Thousands of beings from dozens of worlds had gathered for the Ascension Gala. It was the most important night for the Empire. On this night, the royal children would find their bond partners. They were tall and graceful. Their skin had a soft blue glow and their eyes shone like stars. They were known across the galaxy for their psionic powers. They could share thoughts, feel emotions, and connect their minds with others. They called this ability the resonance. Princess Lyra stood alone on the observation deck. Below her, she could see her brother surrounded by nobles from 3 different worlds. They all wanted to bond with him. His resonance was strong, and bonding with him meant power and status. Her sister Myra was dancing with an ambassador from the Federation. Their laughter floated up to where Lyra stood. Everyone wanted to be near Myra. Her resonance was warm and inviting. But nobody wanted to be near Lyra. She was born different. The doctors had discovered it when she was only a child. Her neural pathways were not like other. She could not produce resonance. She could not share thoughts or feel the minds of others. To her people, she was hollow, empty, broken. Lyra pulled her silver cloak around her shoulders. She had stopped crying about this years ago. Now she just felt tired. "Look at her," someone whispered below. Lyra's hearing was still sharp, even if her mind was silent. The hollow princess. Why did the Emperor even bring her? "He probably hopes someone will take pity on her," another voice answered. "But who would bond with a broken? It would be shameful." Lyra closed her eyes. She had heard these words 1,000 times. They still hurt, but she had learned to hide the pain. On the other side of the Great Hall, a human named was trying not to look bored. He was part of Earth's diplomatic team. Humans were new to the Galactic Union. They had only made contact with alien life 50 years ago. Most species still thought of them as primitive. Did not mind. He found the galaxy fascinating. Every species was different. Every culture had something to teach. His colleague Ha stood beside him. She was a who studied alien life forms. She pointed at the royals dancing below. "The bonding ceremony will happen at midnight," explained. "The prince and princess will choose their partners. The bonds are permanent. They share their resonance forever." Nodded. He had read about this. The soul bond was famous across the galaxy. It created powerful alliances and deep connections. "What about her?" asked. He had noticed a lone figure on the observation deck. A young woman stood apart from everyone else. She was beautiful, with long silver hair and sad eyes, but she seemed invisible to everyone at the party. Followed his gaze. Her expression became serious. "That is Princess Lyra," she said quietly. "The 3rd child of Emperor. She cannot produce resonance. She was born without the ability. So she cannot bond with anyone." "She can," said, "but no one wants to bond with her. To the resonance is everything. Without it, she is considered worthless. Some even call her a curse." Frowned. He watched Lyra standing alone while her siblings celebrated below. Something about the scene bothered him deeply. "That seems cruel," he said. Shrugged. "Different cultures, different values. To us, it seems unfair. To them, it is simply the truth." But could not accept that. He was human. Humans did not sense psionic fields. They could not feel the resonance that made them judge each other. All could see was a young woman standing alone at her own celebration. Meanwhile, Lyra had decided to leave. She could not bear to watch the bonding ceremony. She would return to her chambers and read, as she always did. Books did not judge her. Engineering manuals did not whisper about her behind her back. She walked through the quiet corridors of the station. Her footsteps echoed on the metal floor. The music from the great hall grew distant. She stopped outside her father's council chamber. The door was slightly open. She heard voices inside. "The situation is becoming difficult," a counselor said. "The other empires are asking questions. Why is your daughter still unbonded? It reflects poorly on the royal family." "I am aware," Emperor replied. His voice was tired. "Lyra is my daughter, I love her, but I do not know what to do." "Perhaps she should be sent away," another counselor suggested. "The remote colony on Prime, she could live quietly there, away from political matters." Lyra felt her heart break. Her own father was discussing sending her away, not because he wanted to hurt her, but because she was an embarrassment, a problem to be solved. "I will consider it," Emperor said finally, "for her own protection." Lyra did not wait to hear more. She ran to her chambers and locked the door. She sat on her bed and stared at the stars outside her window. For her own protection, that was what they always said, but Lyra knew the truth. They wanted to hide her. They wanted to forget she existed. She had spent her whole life trying to prove herself. She had studied engineering when other princesses learned dance. She had mastered stellar cartography when her siblings practiced their resonance. She spoke 12 languages. She could repair a starship engine with her own hands. But none of it mattered. To her people, she would always be the hollow princess, the broken one, the mistake. Lyra looked at her reflection in the dark window. She saw a young woman with silver hair and empty eyes. "I am more than this," she whispered to herself. "I know I am more than this." But the stars did not answer, and the silence in her mind remained as deep and lonely as the void between worlds. Far below in the great hall, the bonding ceremony began. Chose his partner. Myra chose hers. The crystals glowed with brilliant blue light as resonance flowed between bonded pairs. No one noticed that the third princess was missing. No one except a young human diplomat who kept looking at the empty observation deck. Did not know why he felt drawn to that lonely figure. He did not understand the strange feeling in his chest. But he knew one thing: he had seen her, and he would not forget. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but sometimes the most important thing was simply to notice someone who had been overlooked by everyone else. And had noticed Princess Lyra. 3 days passed after the Ascension Gala. Could not stop thinking about the princess he had seen standing alone. He asked many questions about and their bonding customs. "The soul bond is sacred to them," explained. They were sitting in the research lab of the human embassy. Data screens glowed around them with information about alien cultures. When two beings bond, they share their resonance. It makes them stronger. It connects their minds and emotions. "And without resonance, Princess Lyra cannot bond?" asked. "She can go through the ritual," said, "but it would be empty. No power would flow, no connection would form. Such a bond would be meaningless, even insulting." Leaned back in his chair. "But she is still a princess. She is still intelligent. She still has value." Smiled sadly. "You think like a human. We judge people by their character and actions. The judge by resonance. It is not right or wrong. It is simply different." But could not accept this. He had seen the loneliness in Lyra's eyes. He had watched her stand alone while the galaxy celebrated around her. Something about that image stayed with him. The next morning had meetings with trade officials. The negotiations were long and boring. He discussed shipping routes and resource exchanges, but his mind kept wandering. After the meetings, he decided to explore the station. The Galactic Union headquarters was enormous. It held gardens, markets, temples, and libraries from 100 different worlds. He found himself in the botanical gardens. Plants from across the galaxy grew here. Blue trees from, red flowers from the worlds, glowing moss from the deep caves of. And there, sitting on a bench beneath a silver tree, was Princess Lyra. She was reading something on a data pad. Her silver hair fell across her face. She did not notice him at first. Hesitated. He was just a human diplomat. She was royalty. Speaking to her without invitation might cause problems. But then he remembered her standing alone. He remembered the whispers calling her hollow and broken, and he made a decision. He walked toward her. His footsteps made a soft sound on the stone path. Lyra looked up. Her eyes widened with surprise. "I am sorry to disturb you," said. He gave a small bow. I work with the Earth delegation." Lyra studied him for a moment. Her expression was guarded. She was not used to people approaching her willingly. "I know who you are," she said. "I saw you at the gala. You are one of the humans." "Yes," smiled. "May I sit?" Lyra seemed confused by the request, but she nodded and moved to make space on the bench. They sat in silence for a moment. The gardens were peaceful. Alien birds sang in the trees above them. "Why are you here?" Lyra asked finally. Her voice was careful. "Most people avoid me. They say I am unlucky." "I do not believe in luck," said, "and I do not sense resonance. I cannot feel whatever makes others uncomfortable around you." Lyra tilted her head. "You truly cannot feel it, the emptiness where my resonance should be." "No, I just see a woman reading in a garden. Nothing more, nothing less." Something changed in Lyra's eyes. The guard she held around herself softened slightly. It had been so long since someone spoke to her normally, without pity, without disgust, without false kindness hiding true discomfort. "What are you reading?" asked. Lyra showed him the data pad. "A manual on quantum drive engines. I find them fascinating." His eyebrows rose. "You study engineering?" "Among other things." Lyra put down the data pad. "I also study stellar cartography and political history. When no one wants to speak with you, you have much time for reading." There was bitterness in her voice, but also strength. She had taken her isolation and turned it into education. Where others saw a broken princess, saw someone who had refused to give up. "That is impressive," he said honestly. "Most diplomats I work with cannot repair a door panel. You understand quantum drives." Lyra almost smiled. "Almost. You are strange, human. Most beings look at me with pity or disgust. You look at me like I am a colleague." "Perhaps that is how I see you," said. They talked for an hour. Lyra spoke about stellar navigation and the physics of jump gates, shared stories about Earth and humanity's first steps into the galaxy. They found common ground in their curiosity about the universe. For the first time in years, Lyra laughed. It was a small laugh, surprised out of her by a joke made about human cooking, but it was real. When finally stood to leave, Lyra looked at him with an expression he could not read. "Why?" she asked simply. "Why what? Why are you kind to me? You gain nothing from it. I have no power, no resonance, no political value. Speaking with me might even harm your position." Thought about the question, then he shrugged. "Where I come from, we do not need reasons to be kind. We just are," he smiled. "And I find you interesting. That is enough for me." He left her sitting in the garden. Lyra watched him go. Her heart felt strange, warm. She had forgotten what it felt like to be seen as a person instead of a problem. Meanwhile, in the council chambers, the political situation was growing worse. The Collective, an aggressive empire from the outer regions, was moving its fleets closer to Union space. War seemed possible. Emperor met with his advisors. They discussed alliances and military strength. And once again, the topic of Princess Lyra came up. "Your daughter remains unbonded," a counselor said. "This makes the royal family appear weak. They might see it as a sign of instability." "Then what would you have me do?" the emperor asked. "Send her to Prime, quietly, before the situation becomes worse." Emperor closed his eyes. He loved his daughter, but he was also an emperor. He had to think of his people. "Prepare the transport," he said finally. "We will send her next month." He did not know that his daughter had finally found someone who saw her true value. He did not know that a human was about to change everything. And in the gardens, Lyra sat beneath the silver tree, still holding the warmth of a conversation that had made her feel human. Or rather, had made her feel like a person again. She did not know what the future held, but for the first time in years, she felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope, Spent the next week learning everything he could about bonding rituals. He read ancient texts. He studied ceremonial records. He asked question after question until she finally demanded to know why. "I am just curious," he said. Crossed her arms, she knew him too well. "You are planning something, I can see it in your eyes. What are you thinking?" Hesitated, then he showed her what he had found. "Look at this," he said, pointing to an old document on his screen. "The bonding ritual does not actually require resonance. It requires three things: a willing pair, a public declaration, and the completion of the ceremonial steps." Read the document. Her eyes grew wide. "The resonance amplifies the bond," continued. "It adds power and connection, but the ritual itself works without it. It is a contract, a commitment. The psionic element comes after." Said slowly, "What exactly are you planning?" He looked at her. His expression was calm but determined. "I am going to offer to bond with Princess Lyra." Stared at him in shock. For a long moment she could not speak. "You cannot be serious," she finally said. "You are human, she is royalty. This has never been done. They will be offended. They might see it as an insult." "Or they might see it as a solution," replied. "The princess needs a bond partner. No will take her, but I can. I do not need resonance. I do not care about psionic power." "But why?" demanded. "Why would you tie yourself to an alien princess? You would be giving up your freedom, your future, everything." Was quiet for a moment. He thought about Lyra laughing in the garden. He thought about her sharp mind and her sad eyes. He thought about a woman who had been told her whole life that she was worthless. "Because someone should stand beside her," he said simply. "And if no one else will, then I will." Shook her head, but she also smiled. "You are the strangest human I know." "Is that a yes?" "It is a yes that I will help you, but this is still crazy." The next day, requested a meeting with Emperor. This alone caused confusion. A human diplomat wanting to speak privately with the Emperor was unusual. The Emperor agreed to meet him, was led into the imperial chambers. The room was grand and beautiful. Light flowed through crystal walls. Guards stood at every corner. Emperor sat on a throne of white stone. He was tall and powerful. His resonance filled the room like pressure in the air. Could not feel it, but he could see how others reacted to it. "Speak human," the Emperor said. His voice was deep but not unkind. "What brings you before me?" Bowed respectfully. Then he stood straight and spoke clearly. "I have come to request the honor of bonding with Princess Lyra." The room went silent. The guards stared. The advisors whispered. Emperor's expression did not change, but his eyes sharpened. "You are human," the Emperor said slowly. "You have no resonance." "That is correct. My daughter has no resonance. A bond between you would have no power, no psionic connection. It would be empty." "With respect, Your Majesty," said, "I disagree." The whispers grew louder. Some advisors looked angry. Others looked confused. A human challenging the Emperor's words was almost unheard of. "Explain yourself," Emperor commanded. Took a breath. He had prepared for this moment. "Among my people, bonds do not require shared abilities. Marriage does not give us power. Partnerships do not amplify our strength. We bond for different reasons." "What reasons?" "Choice, commitment, the decision to stand beside someone even when it costs us something." Paused. "Princess Lyra has been overlooked because she cannot offer resonance, but she can offer intelligence, knowledge, and loyalty. These things matter to humans." "And what do you offer her?" the Emperor asked. "Someone who sees her worth, someone who will not abandon her, someone who chooses her not because of what she can give, but because of who she is." The room was very quiet. Emperor studied the human before him. He had ruled for 200 years. He had seen empires rise and fall, but he had never seen this. A human, a species so young, standing before him and offering something that made no logical sense. You gain nothing from this bond, the Emperor said. I gain a partner, replied. Where I come from, that is everything. Emperor was silent for a long time. Then slowly something changed in his expression. It was not quite a smile, but it was close. My daughter must agree, he said finally. If she accepts your offer, I will permit the bond. Bowed again. Thank you, Your Majesty. He left the imperial chambers with his heart pounding. The first step was done. Now came the harder part. He found Lyra in the gardens again. She was reading as always. When she saw him, she almost smiled. You have been busy, she said. I heard rumors that a human met with my father. I did not believe it was you. Sat beside her. He was nervous, but he did not show it. I have something to ask you, he said. It will sound strange. Please hear me fully before you answer. Lyra put down her data pad. Her eyes were curious. I have asked your father for permission to bond with you, said. Lyra went very still. Her face showed no emotion but could see shock in her eyes. That is impossible, she said quietly. You are human, the bond would be meaningless. Not to me. You would gain nothing. No power, no connection, no political advantage. I am worthless in the eyes of the galaxy. Shook his head. You are not worthless. You are brilliant. You speak 12 languages. You understand technology that most engineers cannot grasp. You have survived years of loneliness and cruelty, and you are still standing. Lyra's hands trembled slightly. No one had ever spoken to her like this. Why, she asked, the same question as before, but this time it meant more. Met her eyes. Because where I come from, standing beside someone when no one else will is the greatest bond of all. I am not offering you resonance. I am offering you something humans give instead. Loyalty, choice, the promise that you will not face the future alone. Tears formed in Lyra's eyes. She blinked them away quickly. You barely know me, she said. Then I look forward to knowing you better. Lyra was quiet for a long time. She looked at the gardens around them. She thought about her whole life, the loneliness, the whispers, the plans to send her away. And then she thought about this strange human who saw her when everyone else looked away. Yes, she said finally. Her voice was soft but steady. I accept. Smiled. For the first time since he had planned this, he felt relief. Then we should prepare, he said. The ceremony will be watched by the whole galaxy. Lyra almost laughed. They will think we are mad. Perhaps we are, offered his hand, but at least we will be mad together. Lyra looked at his hand, then she took it. And in that moment something changed. Neither of them could explain it, but they both felt it. The beginning of something new. The news spread across the Galactic Union like fire. The Hollow Princess was going to bond with a human. Everyone had an opinion. Some laughed, some were curious, some were deeply offended. It is a joke, one noble declared, a mockery of our traditions. It is desperate, another said. The Emperor has finally given up on finding a real partner for his broken daughter. But others saw it differently. The ambassador found it fascinating. The delegation called it brave, and humans across the galaxy watched with quiet pride. The ceremony was set for the full moon of the calendar. It would be held in the great Temple of Resonance, the most sacred space in the Empire. Thousands would attend. Millions more would watch through broadcasts. Lyra prepared in her chambers. Servants dressed her in ceremonial robes of silver and white. Crystals were woven into her hair. She looked beautiful, but her hands shook. You can still change your mind, her brother said. He stood in the doorway watching her. His expression was complicated. He had never known how to treat his sister. She made him uncomfortable. I will not change my mind, Lyra said. This human cannot give you what a partner could. The bond will be empty. You will feel nothing. Lyra turned to face him. For the first time in years, she did not look away from her brother. I have felt nothing my whole life, she said. At least now I will have someone who chose to stand beside me. That is more than you ever offered." Flinched, he had no answer. He turned and left without another word. In another part of the station was also preparing, helped him with the traditional garments. They were simple by standards, dark blue robes with silver edges. "Are you nervous?" asked. "Very," admitted. "Good, that means you understand what you are doing." She straightened his collar. "You know this will change everything, your career, your life, everything." "I know." "And you are sure?" Thought about Lyra, her strength, her pain, her small laugh in the garden. "I am sure." The great temple was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Crystal pillars rose toward the ceiling. Light flowed through stained glass walls. The air hummed with the combined resonance of thousands of. Emperor sat on the imperial throne. His face was unreadable. Beside him, Prince and Princess Myra watched with different expressions. Myra seemed curious, seemed troubled. The temple fell silent as the doors opened. Lyra entered first. She walked slowly down the central path. Whispers followed her like shadows. She could not hear the words, but she knew what they were saying. Hollow, broken, mistake. She held her head high and did not look away. Then entered. He walked with calm confidence. He was aware of every eye upon him. He was aware of the judgment and the doubt, but he did not care. He reached the altar where Lyra waited. He stood beside her and met her eyes. She was afraid. He could see it, but she was also determined. "I am here," he said quietly. Only she could hear. "I know," she replied. "Thank you." The high priest stepped forward. He was ancient, his blue skin pale with age. His resonance was overwhelming, filling the temple like a wave. "We gather to witness a bond," the priest announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. "A union between Princess Lyra of the and of Earth." More whispers, more judgment. The priest ignored them. "The bond is sacred. It is a promise. It is a choice. Do you both enter freely?" "I do," said clearly. "I do," Lyra said. The priest nodded. He raised his hands and two crystals floated from the altar. They glowed with soft blue light. These were bonding crystals. They would channel and record the resonance between partners. "Place your hands upon the crystals," the priest commanded. And Lyra each placed a hand on one crystal. The blue glow flickered. Everyone waited. In normal ceremonies, this was when the resonance would flow. The crystals would blaze with light. The bonded pair would feel their minds connect, their souls intertwine. But Lyra had no resonance, and was human. There should be nothing. The silence stretched. Seconds felt like hours. Some nobles began to smirk. This was proof, they thought. The bond was empty. It was meaningless. Then something happened. The crystals changed color. Instead of blue, they began to glow with warm golden light. It was soft at first. Then it grew brighter, brighter, brighter still. The whole temple was bathed in golden radiance. Gasps filled the chamber. The high priest stumbled back in shock. Even Emperor leaned forward, his eyes wide. Lyra felt something she had never felt before. It was not the cold precision of resonance. It was warmth. It spread through her body like sunlight after a long winter. She could feel not his thoughts, not his mind, but his presence, his steadiness, his quiet strength. Felt it too, a connection that was not psionic. It was something else, something deeper. He felt Lyra's fear and her courage. He felt her loneliness and her hope. The golden light pulsed once. Then it faded, leaving the crystals glowing with a gentle amber color. The temple was completely silent. "What was that?" someone finally asked. No one had an answer. The high priest examined the crystals with trembling hands. He had performed 10,000 bonding ceremonies. He had never seen anything like this. "The bond is complete," he said slowly. His voice was uncertain. "But it is different. The energy is not resonance. It is something else." "What else could it be?" Emperor demanded. Spoke, his voice was calm. Humans call it many things: love, loyalty, faith. We do not have psionic powers, so we evolved something else, a different kind of connection. The priest stared at him. You are saying humans bond with emotion instead of resonance. Perhaps we do not fully understand it ourselves. We just know that it is real. Lyra looked at the crystals. Then she looked at. Tears ran down her face, but she was smiling. I feel it, she said. For the first time in my life, I feel something. The whispers started again, but now they were different, less mocking, more amazed. Prince watched his sister smile, and something cracked inside him. He had ignored her for years. He had let others call her broken. And now she stood before the whole empire, glowing with a light no one had ever seen. Emperor rose from his throne. The temple fell silent. The bond is witnessed and recorded, he declared. His voice carried weight and authority. Princess Lyra and are now partners. Let no one question this union. It was not full acceptance. The emperor was still uncertain, but it was protection, a statement that his daughter would not be mocked. Lyra bowed to her father, did the same. They walked out of the temple together. The golden crystals floated behind them, still glowing with that strange, warm light. Outside, the stars waited, the galaxy watched, and history had changed. A broken princess and a human with no psionic power had formed a bond that should have been impossible. The light they created could not be explained. But it was real, and everyone had seen it. In the shadows of the temple, a spy watched. He recorded everything and sent it to his masters. Something unexpected has happened, his message read. The situation requires reassessment. Far away in the dark ships of the collective, commanders reviewed the recording. They saw the golden light. They saw the impossible bond. And they began to plan. But Lyra knew nothing of this yet. They only knew that they had taken the first step together. Whatever came next, they would face it as partners. As something new. Something the galaxy had never seen before. The weeks after the ceremony were strange and difficult. The golden light had shocked the galaxy, but it had not changed everyone's opinions. Many still doubted, many still mocked, but now there was also curiosity. Scientists came from across the Union to study Lyra, and they scanned their brains. They measured their energy patterns. They asked endless questions. How do you feel the connection? A researcher asked Lyra. It is warm, she replied. Like standing in sunlight, I cannot read his thoughts, but I know when he is near. I know when he is worried or happy. This is unprecedented, the researcher muttered, taking notes. Emotional resonance without psionic channels, remarkable. Found the attention exhausting, but he understood its importance. If scientists could understand their bond, perhaps it could help others. Perhaps like Lyra would no longer be called hollow. But not everyone watched with scientific interest. The collective saw something else: opportunity. They were a warrior species. They valued strength above all. For years they had tested the Galactic Union's defenses, small raids, border skirmishes. They were looking for weakness. And now they thought they had found one. The Emperor has a broken daughter, a commander reported to his council. She is now bonded to a human, a primitive species with no psionic ability. The royal family is divided. This is the time to strike. They began moving their fleets closer to Union space. They sent spies to gather information. They planned assassinations. Meanwhile, Lyra were learning to work together. They spent hours in the gardens, talking about politics and strategy. Lyra's knowledge of court dynamics was invaluable. His outsider perspective helped her see things she had missed. Your counselors are too focused on resonance, observed one day. They measure every threat by psionic power, but they do not rely on resonance. They use technology and numbers. Lyra nodded slowly. You are right. We have always assumed that strong resonance means strong defense, but what if that is not true? They began working on proposals. new defensive strategies, different ways to assess threats. Lyra presented their ideas to her father's council. The counselors were skeptical at first. A princess with no resonance and a human. What could they know about warfare? But the ideas were good. Even the most stubborn advisors had to admit that the analysis was sound. Emperor watched his daughter with new eyes. She had always been smart. He had known that, but he had never given her a chance to show it. Perhaps I was wrong about her, he thought. Prince also watched. He had avoided his sister for years, but now he found himself drawn to observe her. She had changed. She stood taller. She spoke with more confidence, and that strange warm light from the ceremony still lingered in her eyes. One night, found alone on an observation deck, the human was watching the stars, thinking. I owe you an apology, said. Turned, he had not expected this. For what? For ignoring my sister, for letting others call her broken, for being ashamed of her. His voice was stiff. This was hard for him. I should have protected her. I did not. Studied the prince for a moment. He could be angry. He could be righteous. But he saw something in his eyes that stopped him. Genuine regret. You cannot change the past, said simply, but you can choose what you do now. Nodded slowly. How do I fix it? How do I make things right? Start by talking to her, not as a prince to a problem, but as a brother to a sister. Thought about this. Then he did something unexpected. He bowed, a prince bowing to a human. Thank you, he said, for showing me what I failed to see. From that day became an ally. He spoke up for Lyra in council meetings. He defended her against those who still mocked her. It was not enough to erase years of neglect, but it was a beginning. Meanwhile, something else was happening, something Lyra did not fully understand. She began to sense things she had never sensed before. When was across the station, she knew it. When he was worried, she felt a flutter in her chest. When he laughed, even far away, she smiled without knowing why. This should not be possible, she told. The human scientist had become a friend. I have no resonance. I cannot form mental connections. Examined her readings again. You are right that it is not traditional resonance, but something is definitely happening. Your brain patterns have changed since the bonding. There are new pathways forming. New pathways. It seems like the bond with is creating something, not psionic connection, something different. We do not have a name for it yet. Lyra touched her chest. She could feel his presence like a gentle warmth. It was strange, but it was also wonderful. She had spent her whole life feeling empty. Now she felt full. But the galaxy would not let them be happy for long. An assassination team arrived on the station disguised as traitors. Their target was Princess Lyra. The attack came at night. Lyra was walking through a quiet corridor when shadows moved. 3 warriors appeared, weapons drawn. The Hollow Princess, one of them hissed. Our commanders want you alive, but we can hurt you first. Lyra backed away. She had no combat training. She could not fight them. But then she felt something, a surge of warmth in her chest. He knew. Somehow across the station he knew she was in danger. She did not understand how, but she trusted it. Help is coming, she said, standing. You will not succeed. The laughed. A broken princess with no resonance. What help could possibly reach you in time? But before they could grab her, alarms filled the corridor. Security doors slammed shut. Emergency lights flooded the area. Lyra had triggered the station's defense systems, not with resonance, but with the engineering panel hidden behind her. She had memorized every system on the station. She was not helpless. She had never been helpless. She had just been waiting for a chance to prove it. Arrived with station security moments later, they were captured. Lyra was safe. Ran to her side. I felt it, he said breathlessly. I felt you were in danger. I do not know how. Lyra touched his face. Our bond, she said, it is growing. They looked at each other. The golden warmth pulsed between them. Whatever they had was not resonance, it was something new, and it was getting stronger. The captured were interrogated. They revealed that this was only the beginning. A larger attack was planned. The collective was preparing for war. Emperor called an emergency council. For the first time, Princess Lyra and were invited to attend. The galaxy was changing. The Hollow Princess was hollow no more. And humanity had just become much more interesting to every species in the Galactic Union. The Peace Summit was supposed to show the galaxy that the Union was strong. Leaders from dozens of worlds gathered on the station. There were speeches and ceremonies. There were promises of cooperation and friendship. It was all a trap. The collective had been planning this for months. While diplomats talked, warships moved into position. While nobles celebrated, infiltrators planted bombs throughout the station. When the moment was right, they struck. Explosions shook the station. Lights flickered and died. Emergency sirens screamed. In the Great Hall, chaos erupted as delegates ran for safety. Soldiers poured through breached airlocks. They wore black armor and carried plasma weapons. They moved with cold efficiency, securing corridors and capturing anyone who resisted. Their primary targets were the royals. Capturing them would break the Empire's will to fight. Emperor was with his guards when the attack began. They formed a protective circle around him, but the numbers were overwhelming. "Protect the Emperor," a guard shouted before being cut down. Prince drew his ceremonial blade. It was not much of a weapon, but he would not surrender without a fight. Princess Myra stood beside him, her resonance flaring as she tried to push back the attackers mentally. But they had prepared. They wore psionic dampeners that blocked mental attacks. Resonance was useless against them. "Your powers mean nothing here," a commander laughed. "Surrender and you might live." Across the station, Lyra felt her family's fear. She did not understand how, but the bond allowed her to sense strong emotions from those connected to her by blood. They were in danger. They needed help. "I have to go to them," she told. "The corridors are filled with soldiers," he replied. "We need to find another way." Lyra's mind raced. She knew this station better than anyone. She had spent years walking its empty hallways, memorizing its systems, understanding its design. "The maintenance tunnels," she said. "They run parallel to the main corridors. We can reach the Great Hall without being seen." They moved quickly through narrow passages. Lyra led the way, her memory guiding them through the darkness. Followed, trusting her completely. They heard fighting above them. Screams, plasma fire, the station was falling. But Lyra had a plan. She had always been ignored. She had used that time to learn. Now she would use that knowledge to save her people. They reached a junction point. Lyra accessed a control panel with practiced hands. "What are you doing?" asked. They entered through the lower airlocks. "If I seal those sections and vent the atmosphere, I can cut off their reinforcements." "Can you do that without hurting our people?" "I know which sections are evacuated. I know where the delegates sheltered. I can be precise." She looked at him. "Trust me." "Did not hesitate. I trust you." Lyra worked quickly. Her fingers flew across the controls. She sealed doors, rerouted power, and vented specific corridors into space. Throughout the lower decks, soldiers suddenly found themselves trapped or exposed to vacuum. Their reinforcement lines collapsed. Their careful plan began to fall apart. But the main assault force was still in the station, and they still held the Great Hall. Gathered the station security forces who had survived. They were scattered and confused, but he organized them quickly. "The princess has cut off their support," he told them. "Now we take back the station." They moved through the corridors sector by sector. It was hard fighting. There were disciplined warriors, but humans were stubborn and refused to give up. Meanwhile, Lyra made her way to the Great Hall. She approached from above, using the observation galleries. She could see her father and siblings surrounded by soldiers. The commander stood before them, gloating. "The mighty empire," the commander said mockingly, "built on resonance and arrogance. Now you kneel before the—" "We do not kneel," Emperor replied. His voice was calm despite the danger. "You will learn." The commander turned and saw Lyra watching from above. His smile widened. "Ah, the broken princess, the hollow one, come to watch your family fall." Lyra stepped forward. She was alone, unarmed, but she was not afraid. "I came to offer you a choice," she said. "Surrender now and you might live." The soldiers laughed. The commander's smile became a sneer. "You threaten us. You have no power, no resonance. You are nothing." Lyra smiled. It was a cold smile. The smile of someone who had been underestimated her whole life and had finally had enough. "You are right," she said. "I have no resonance, but I do not need it." She pressed a control device in her hand. The great hall shook. Panels in the walls slid open, revealing automated defense turrets that had been dormant for decades. Lyra had reactivated them an hour ago. The turrets fired, not plasma bolts but stun pulses. Soldiers collapsed one by one. The commander tried to run, but Lyra had sealed every exit. Within seconds, every in the great hall was unconscious on the floor. Silence fell. Emperor stared at his daughter in shock. Prince's mouth hung open. Princess Myra began to laugh. "How?" the emperor asked. "I studied this station for 15 years, Lyra said, walking down to join her family. "I know every system, every weakness, every forgotten defense." She looked at her father. "You said I had no power. You were wrong. I just have a different kind." Emperor was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something he had not done since she was a child. He embraced her. "I am sorry," he whispered, "for everything." Lyra closed her eyes. Tears fell, but she did not hide them. Outside the great hall, and his team finished securing the station. The remaining were captured or fled to their ships, and when they saw what awaited them in space, they fled entirely. The Galactic Union fleet had arrived. The attack had failed. Later, when the chaos had calmed, found Lyra on the observation deck. She was looking at the stars, just as she had been the night they first met. He stood beside her. Their bond pulsed with golden warmth. "You were amazing," he said. Lyra shook her head. "I was just finally able to show what I could always do, because of you." She turned to face him. "You saw me when no one else did. You stood beside me when everyone else looked away. You gave me the chance to prove myself." Took her hand. "You would have found a way eventually. I just helped a little." "You helped more than a little." They stood together watching the stars. Behind them, the station slowly returned to normal. The Galactic Union had survived. The Empire was shaken but standing. And everyone now knew the name of the princess, who had saved them all. The hollow princess was hollow no more. She was a hero. And by her side stood a human who had seen her worth when no one else could. The weeks after the attack were filled with celebration and change. The Galactic Union had survived its greatest threat in a century. The collective retreated to their borders, weakened and humiliated. And across the galaxy, one name was spoken with respect and wonder. Princess Lyra. The hollow princess had become a hero. News broadcasts showed her face. Stories spread about how she had single-handedly stopped the assault. Some details were exaggerated. Others were not believed because they seemed too incredible. But the truth was enough. A princess with no resonance had saved the empire using knowledge and courage alone. Emperor called a special assembly of the court. The great hall was restored and filled with nobles, diplomats, and representatives from across the Union. Everyone wanted to witness what would happen next. Lyra stood before her father's throne. She wore simple robes, not ceremonial dress. She had refused anything elaborate. "Princess Lyra," the emperor announced, his voice carrying through the silent hall, "you have shown courage and wisdom beyond measure. You saved your family. You saved the Union. You proved that worth is not measured by resonance alone. He paused, the hall waited. I was wrong about you. I let others convince me that you were a burden. I considered sending you away. These were the mistakes of a fool. His voice cracked slightly. I ask your forgiveness. Lyra bowed her head. You are my father, you always will be. There is nothing to forgive. Emperor smiled. It was a rare expression on his stern face. Then let me offer you what I should have given long ago. A place in this family, a voice in this empire, a future of your choosing. He stood and removed a medallion from around his neck. It was the seal of imperial succession. Only those who could inherit the throne wore it. I name you as a formal heir to the empire, not despite your differences, but because of them. Gasps filled the hall. This was unprecedented. An unbonded princess with no resonance named as heir. It challenged everything the believed. But then Prince stepped forward. He knelt before his sister. I support this choice, he said loudly. Princess Lyra has more courage and wisdom than I ever showed. She deserves this honor. Princess Myra joined him. I agree. My sister has proven herself. Let anyone who doubts her speak now. No one spoke. The silence was acceptance. Emperor placed the medallion around Lyra's neck. She felt its weight, the responsibility it carried, the future it represented. Rise, Princess Lyra, her father said, heir of the hero of the Union. She stood, and for the first time in her life she did not feel hollow, she felt complete. In the days that followed, scholars from across the galaxy came to study Lyra and's bond. They brought instruments and theories. They asked endless questions. The energy signature is unlike anything in our records, a scientist reported. It is not psionic, it is something else entirely, something new. What do you call it? Another researcher asked. Answered, humans call it many things. Love, loyalty, faith, the commitment to stand beside someone no matter what. These are emotions. How can emotions create measurable energy? Stepped forward. She had been studying this question for weeks. Human brains work differently, she explained. We evolved without psionic abilities, but we developed something else. Strong emotional connections that trigger real physiological changes. Heart rate, brain chemistry, neural pathways. When humans bond emotionally, our bodies respond. She showed her data on the screens around the room. Lyra could not produce resonance, but when she bonded with, his emotional energy created a new kind of connection. Their brains synchronized in ways we have never seen. The result is a bond that is not psionic but equally real. The scientists were amazed. If humans could create bonds without resonance, it meant that who lacked psionic abilities might find partners after all. It meant that worth was truly not limited to mental powers. Months passed, the galaxy slowly changed. Others with limited resonance began seeking human partners. Some bonds formed. The golden light appeared again and again. What had been impossible was becoming normal. Humanity's status in the Galactic Union rose. Species that had considered them primitive now looked at them with new respect. Humans offered something unique: connection without condition, loyalty without power, love without requiring anything in return. One evening, and Lyra stood on the observation deck. It had become their special place. The stars spread out before them like scattered jewels. Do you ever regret it? Lyra asked. The same question she had asked so many times, but now it came from happiness, not fear. Never, replied, not for a single moment. You gave up your normal life, your career, everything. Turned to face her, he took her hands in his. I gained something better, a partner who challenges me, a friend who understands me, a future that matters, he smiled. Where I come from, that is worth everything. Lyra felt the warmth of their bond pulse between them. It had grown stronger over the months. She could sense his emotions now, his joy, his love, his certainty. What happens now? She asked. Whatever we choose, the galaxy is changing. We are part of that change. We can help build something new. Something new, Lyra repeated. She liked the sound of that. She thought about her life before, the loneliness, the whispers, the years of being invisible. All of that pain had led her here, to this moment, to this man who had seen her when everyone else looked away. I used to think I was broken, she said quietly, that something was wrong with me, that I would never belong. And now, Lyra smiled. It was a real smile full of warmth and hope. Now I know that I was just waiting, for someone to see what I could become, for a chance to prove myself, for you. Pulled her close. They held each other as the stars watched. Far across the galaxy, a historian was recording the events of the past year. She spoke into her recording device, carefully choosing her words. On this day, we learned something important. Strength is not measured by what powers one possesses. Worth is not determined by abilities one is born with. The true measure of a being is found in who chooses to stand beside them. She paused, thinking of the hollow princess and the human who had changed everything. Perhaps in all the galaxy there is no species that understands this better than humanity. They came to us without psionic powers, without advanced technology, without centuries of civilization. And yet they taught us something we had forgotten, that the greatest bond is not formed by power. It is formed by choice, by loyalty, by love. The historian ended her recording. The words would be preserved forever, a reminder of what had happened, a guide for what could be. And on the observation deck, Lyra and watched the stars together, two beings from different worlds, bound by something stronger than resonance. The hollow princess was hollow no more. And the human who had stepped forward to stand beside her had proven something to the entire galaxy. Sometimes the most powerful thing in the universe is simply choosing to see someone's worth when no one else will, and saying, without fear or hesitation, "Bond with me." The stars shone above them, the future waited before them, and together they stepped forward to meet it. This was not an ending. It was a beginning.